take questions about this or anything else if you want. So this all started off a couple of weeks ago when it was pointed out to me that there were some weapons that had animations in them that really moved the apparent avatar. So let me just quickly, for anyone who might not get this, I think most of you do, but I'll go through it quickly anyway. What you see right now is my avatar, but that's just a rendering in a server. You know, the actual physical part of me is the hitbox. And you can turn on hitbox by going to your developer console and going down to render metadata and then to avatar hitboxes, and it turns on. So if you all know how to, you should know how to turn on hitboxes, I would imagine, since you fight. Turn on hitboxes so you'll see the demo here, because that's what this is about. Anyway, there were some weapons that I saw that the hitbox was displacing the avatar behind the hitbox as it was moving. Now, what that effectively does is give the person a significant advantage in any fighting, and particularly in tournaments is where I was looking at it. So that's what started all of this, and there was a lot of back and forth, and some anger and some other things because I was insisting that they change. It's kind of my feeling anyway that my responsibility is to ensure to all of the sim owners and all of you, all of the community, that Unity weapons are fair. I've locked up the scripts tighter than you can probably imagine, so that no one can really mess with the scripts at all. So if you get a Unity weapon, it should be a Unity weapon. The one place I can't control is the animations that creators use. And if you probably don't know this, but there are over 60 people now who are using my scripts to make weapons, and they sell them. And some don't sell them, some just use them for themselves. So that's an awful lot, and it means it opens up the potential for there to be differences. So the differences really that I'm going after right now and trying to get creators, and I've talked to all of the weapon makers, everyone is trying very hard to make that happen. It's very easy to go buy an animation and not quite realize that it displaces the avatar. So if you have your hitboxes turned on, if you watch, I'm going to start something up on myself. Animations, go. So,
and for those of us who are...
Go ahead.
For those of us who are re-entering SL or have not caught up on all the changes, what do you do to turn on hitboxes now?
I think it's Control-Alt-D. Isn't that right?
Thank you, Reika.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to show you, I've made sometimes displacing the avatar is fun. So I made some spells, I call them skills, in the Unity meter for rangers. And so in battles where you're doing also role play and having fun like that, there's one that's called illusion. So all of you watch this. So look at where my hitbox is, and now I'm going to move my apparent avatar using this spell. So you can shoot at me all day long, but I'm not where I look to be. My hitbox is where I actually am, where my name is. And there's some fun ones like that you can use it. But when you're fighting and you get an animation that moves you like this one, you see that I'm behind my hitbox now. And when I move, that hitbox is in front of me. So moving over here very quickly, so we won't draw this out too much. You all, I think most of you have seen this practice pole. So that practice pole, the red ring around the bottom of the practice pole is the range for a two-handed sword. And I wanted to do this at the same time to be able to, so people would understand how the Unity weapons work. You see this kind of a semi-round, transparent red bubble. That's a sensor bubble. That's the size of a bubble that is thrown when you swing your sword. So this is using sensors. It's not a physical thing. It doesn't hit. It just senses anything within that bubble. And I've cut the bubble, if you did a 360-degree bubble sensor, you would have just a full globe around you. Yeah, go ahead, Rex. Well, I haven't made one. I have to make one. I've got a table that shows you a graphic that shows you, but I don't usually make the bubble. I had to go into Blender to make the bubble. But yeah, we can do something like that. Anyway, if you take a look at this, here's a couple of things that will help you actually fight. A sensor requires, if it's going to sense an avatar, a sensor won't recognize an avatar unless the pelvis of the avatar is inside of that bubble. So if you're aiming at the head, you're probably not aiming the shortest distance to hit someone. It sounds a bit perverted, but the best way to fight is to aim at the pelvis. Okay? Because the pelvis literally has to be inside. You can have part of the avatar inside, but unless the pelvis of the avatar is inside that bubble, it doesn't do anything. So that's the bubble, and if I'm this close, I'm going to move up as close as I can without, I've got a bump here, so it's really hard to do. Okay. Now everybody look, if you can look from the side, you should be able to see. I'm not quite close enough. I'm going to make one more step and see if I can get it close enough. That's close enough. So you can see if the person, first of all, let me back up. I'm being a little bit fumbly here. But when we fight, the skill that we have has to do with perception. So it's a visual perception, it's a spatial perception. If all of you are fighting, you know that you don't swing too early. If you swing too early, you won't hit someone. You wait for them to be in the range that your skill and your training has told you that will get them, that will hit them. And so if you see people who fight, they duck out, they come at each other, they both swing, they duck out, they come at each other, they both swing. That's been that way since the old Spellfire days. And it has to do with judging the range between you and your opponent. And when you're really a good fighter, you can judge that range quite well. So everybody should agree with that, because that's really what you're doing when you're learning these skills. You're learning to move, in mouse look, but you're learning to judge that range, to gauge the range so that you swing at exactly the right time. And if you get better and better, you can swing and hit them before they swing and hit you, and that's a matter of the difference between your training and your judgment, your ability to judge that range. So if you consider that pole is you, and you're judging the range from you to me, right now you would look at that and say, there's no way that I'm close enough to hit him. But if you see where my hitbox is, I'm close enough to hit you. Everybody follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the issue with having a displaced animation, an animation in a weapon that displaces, particularly if it displaces back, is that unless someone is fighting with their hitboxes turned on, they won't know where my hitbox is. They'll be waiting on me to hit, but I will already be there. Now there's another issue that you can watch here real quick. Just watch me. I'm going to draw my sword. When an animation like this is running, wow, I've got two swords on. When an animation is running, like this one that you see where my hitbox is displaced, when I actually swing, it starts another animation. An animation in the sword starts another animation. So watch this. Boom, I'm up close and I hit and I'm back. All right, so from your apparent view, this is what would happen. And I tested this out yesterday with several people, actually. I used this to fight them, and I just clobbered them. They never could hit me because I'm away from them, and then suddenly I'm up there, hit, and I'm back, I'm gone. So it really is a massive advantage to have a displaced animation in a weapon. And I've asked all weapon makers to please go back and double check and make sure that the animations that they're using don't do that. Now, this happens routinely in Second Life. If you turn on your hitbox and you run, oh, somebody hit me. if you turn on your hitbox and you run, you'll see that your hitbox precedes you. It displaces a little bit because the server is basically moving the physical you, which is the hitbox, and it is having to keep up with the rendering of you, which is the apparent avatar, and it's just a little bit delayed. It's a little bit lagged, if you will. So there almost every time you look at an animation, it has a little bit of displacement. You can notice them also in your AOs. So if you have AOs on, they also displace your avatar, and you can see it even just when you're standing. So that's really the issue, and that's all I really needed to show everybody. Frankly, I'm just a bit tired of the arguments about whether or not this is an issue. It is an issue, and I don't need to really fight about it anymore. If a couple of developers don't want to do something about their weapons, then there's nothing I can really do, but you can. I know that I will be banning those weapons when they come in for tournaments and things like that. Not banning them, but I just won't allow them to be used. I'll test them and make sure that they're not displaced, not the displaced ones. This isn't, again, pervasive. It's just something that I wanted to make sure that everyone knew about. So I'll stop it with that and see if you have questions.
No questions, but I do appreciate you bringing this to my attention. And I will ensure that my conclave and my weapons development team are familiar with this. And in a battle, I will henceforth have hitboxes on so I can see this happen. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention.
Well, I know the GA has always, with your weapons team, that's one of the things I believe that you've always looked at, or they've always looked at. I know when Parzival was over here, that was something he was always very cautious about. So anyway, it is
true. They are, but that does not mean that all of my judges are noticing these things. The WDT is really good about outlawing weapons that have not been tested, and that is great and wonderful. They are generally on top of it, but in all honesty, even though I run the show, it's not a thing that I have actually seen happen. I knew about it, but I have not actually seen it occur. But this demonstration was good, so I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. So again, there's not a lot that I can do to force developers to change animations or to use the right animations. Some of this, quite honestly, I just need to leave up to you, the community. I try very hard not to inject myself into sim activities or sim rules or any of those sorts of things. It's not my role to tell a sim or a sim owner what they need to do or what they have to do. I don't want to be in that role. So, it's really up to you to set rules of engagement and have a look at these. If there are some that aren't acceptable, then they just need to be put into the rules of engagement to say that it won't happen. Okay, well, thank you all for being interested. I was surprised. I thought there would just be a few stragglers from yesterday, but it's a pretty big crowd.
Well, some of us tried to be there, but we couldn't be there yesterday. And it's better to come here